Well, good morning, everyone. How are you doing? My name is Thomas McKenty. I am from Chicago, where many are cold, but few are frozen. Actually, Oslo weather is a lot like Chicago weather. And I'm happy to be here as part of the first MyHeritage live user conference. I am going to have to make up the time that Gilad went over, and I had counted on that. But I promise that I'm not going to go too fast. I will take questions at the end, but probably I will end at 11:20 to give courtesy to my next speaker to set up. And I'll take questions at the back of the room if that's okay. We won't pass the mic or anything. You can come up to me in person and ask. So before I get started, how many of you are new or beginning genealogists? Okay, that's good. That's good to know. I think this is the perfect class for you. I've been doing genealogy for 42 years now, 41 years. And you're going to say, what? It started in 1977. In the United States, we had a television miniseries called Roots that was on television. And I watched it at my great-grandparents' house. They helped raise me. And we would talk about family history after we turned the television off. And I found out that I have French Huguenot heritage. My ninth great-grandfather's stone house is still standing in New York State, built in 1699. And I have Rhode Island ancestry to 1628 and New York Dutch ancestry to 1651, I think. So I'm going to get started. And, I wish I knew some of these issues, like how to do a to-do list, when I started 40 years ago. So those of you that are just starting now, you're getting the benefit of my experience and the experience of many other people. If you do have a mobile device, if you don't mind putting it on silent mode or vibrate mode, I'd appreciate that. I ask that you not reproduce any handouts, but if you want to take pictures of my slides, you have my permission. Okay? So go ahead, and if you need to stand up here and take it, go ahead. It doesn't matter. Also, remember, we're using the hashtag MHLive2018 if you're on social media. Anyone here on Pinterest? Yeah, my family says I need a Pintervention. So, but Twitter, Facebook, and that helps publicize the conference. So this is one of the biggest problems that we have right now with genealogy research. I know that I still do. New genealogists talk about this all the time. I lose information. I lose clues. I find a new record, and I say to myself, I'm going to remember that, and I don't write it down, or I don't capture it. Am I true? I'm seeing people nodding their heads. Okay. Here's an example. During the Great War, which we called World War I in the United States, this is a draft card, and I'll show you a larger image later, but this is a draft card from my great-grandfather, the one that helped raise me. It's from 1917, and down here, and we'll investigate this closer, it lists a wife and a child. This is a new clue for me. Although I knew his wife's name, I didn't know when the child was born, and the child's name is not listed. So this is new information that I should be capturing. Here's a blow-up of the card, and I actually am going to go to the image itself so I can really zoom in on it right there. Let's go a little bit more. And here we go. So I know him as John Ralph Austin. I knew that his birthday was January 31, 1896. What I didn't know was he was a salesman for a company called Fireproof Products in New York City. New information. Why would I want to know that? Well, I like to put skin on the bones of my ancestors. For me, genealogy is not just names and dates. I want to know how they lived, where they worked, everything that they went through in life. He also lists a wife and a child. New information for me. Okay? So this is what I want to capture. So how do you capture that information? You could do this. You want to take advantage of it later. But also, this is the biggest problem, and this has probably happened to you. Have you ever stopped what you're doing to go and pursue that new information? Yes. So my goal here is I want to prove the birth date and the birth location of John Ralph Austin. I was told by a family story that he was born January 31st, 1896, in a little town called Lowville, New York, up near the Canadian border. And all of a sudden I find out, oh, he's working for this company or he has a wife and child. So I'm going to stop that and go on. You know what happens? We hop from thing to thing to thing. Next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You've had too many hot cocos and Baileys, and you don't remember where you were the next morning. I mean, not physically, but in the records. Right. Okay. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with an effective way of capturing information. The reason why I am so adamant about this is, I don't know about you, but I spend a lot of money on genealogy databases. Do you ever lie to your spouse about how much you spend on genealogy? I do. Oh, I only spend about $200 on subscriptions. No. There's MyHeritage, of course. There's Ancestry Fold 3, and then there's DNA tests, and there's webinars, and you know it adds up. So you want to be as efficient as possible. So I have a term that I call BSO. Do you know what a BSO is? A bright and shiny object. It's glittery. It shines in the sun. It captures your attention. But BSOs should not always be followed. It can really derail your research. They look pretty, they look attractive. Some people call them shaky leaves. I won't say where they come from. But it's easy to jump from those bright and shiny objects and turn around and you have nothing to show for your work. So BSO could be a new clue. It also could be a new record. So you have to watch out for the BSOs. Anyone encountered BSOs lately? Probably. So also, there's a BSO out there that you have to watch out for. Do you know that some companies have free access periods for records? Right now in the U.S., Fold 3 has free access for Native American Indian records for the next 2 weeks. So if I had an Indian heritage, I would stop what I was doing and go and use that. So that is a legitimate BSO. That's a limited window that you want to use that information. MyHeritage, from time to time, has free access to records if you're not a subscriber. That's a legitimate BSO. Stop what you're doing. Take advantage, if you don't have a subscription, of the free information. Genealogy is a minefield of BSOs. That is part of the problem, is you have to watch out for them. And you want to conquer the BSO syndrome to be successful. Now, one thing also is many of you may be using some of your matches at MyHeritage. I will show you my tree. I am a very bad boy when it comes to staying on top of my matches. In fact, I can show you how many I have. Do you have like 1,000 or 2,000 or here? Yeah, it stops at 999. Yes. Okay. So I know that I have work to do here. But, you know, I try and do it as best as possible. But again, I want to be systematic. I want to get the most out of those matches and those research clues. So again, on this one, I found this card on MyHeritage. I found the actual record on MyHeritage for the World War I draft card. So I want to extract as much information on that as possible. This is the new info that I got. I did not have a home address. Now, why is this World War I draft card important? Can anyone tell me? It's 1917. In the United States, we had U.S. Census in 1910 and 1920, so it's in between the census years. What you may not know is New York State had a census in 1915 and 1925, so it's even in between 1915 and 1920. And I'm getting all of this new information, so I want to capture that. So this is why I use a to-do list. Does anyone here use a to-do list, some form? What type of to-do list are you using?
Well, I've gone on to MyHeritage.
Right.
In Family Tree Builder.
Yes. Good, good. So she's saying she went to Family Tree Builder in MyHeritage and put that in.
My phone.
Exactly. Right. And so sometimes on your phone. So I will show you some of the ways that you can develop a to-do list. Now, I will tell you, writing it down on a sticky note or in a black and white composition notebook is not bad. I have a friend that does that. She has a composition notebook for every surname that she's researching, and that is her to-do list, and it works for her. The system has to work for you. Otherwise, you're not going to make progress. You also want to mark down a proof point. What are you trying to prove? And then you want to enter the source name and the date of the new information. So we have various ways of doing this. So let me see if I've got, so you could do it in writing. You can do it in a digital notebook. But here, I have a Microsoft Word version, and let me show you this quickly. Aha. I'm going to blow this up so you can see it better. There we go. Do you notice this is what I have? This is my to-do list. I'm all about using color. Green means I've done it. It's done. Usually, if it's red, it's something I want to do right away. I used to be a project manager for a living. Also, here it is, yellow. So notice right down here, this is my new information. I want to prove the name of John Ralph Austin's wife, and the source is a World War I draft card, and I found it on the 28th of October, 2018. Did you notice anything else? I put the link to the record here. How many times have you found a record and the next day you can't find it again online? Yes. So what I do is I'm a big user of hyperlinks. I figured, let me hyperlink this record now so I don't have to do that search again. It takes discipline. It's like making your bed every morning. You have to get in the habit of doing it, and then it's easy to do. Great. So this is all the new information, and it gets added to my to-do list. This is one that I can maintain in Microsoft Word. It's very easy. You can also do it in Excel. Who here is using a research log? Okay. I'm a big advocate of using a research spreadsheet. That's what I do. If you go to the URL genealogyresearchlog.com, you can download my version for free. But let me show you what I've got here. This is my research log. Look it up here. I want to prove the birth date of John Ralph Austin. I track when I started, is it complete, when I completed it, and what was the outcome. Okay? Here's one. I wanted to prove his siblings. So I looked at records and I proved that he had 4 other brothers and their birth dates. So down here, this is how you would use a to-do list. If you can't see it, but if you look closely, there's a tab down here called To-Do List. And remember all those new bits of information? Here they are again in yellow. Prove the wife was Teresa McGinnis. Okay, and I have not yet proven it, so I could put my resources there. What I should be listing is where I got this information. Does this make sense to everyone? I hope so. Good. Okay. And then my main research log is out here. There's a tab out here, and this is my main research log right here. So here I am, proving the date of John Ralph Austin. I have source citations. I have transcripts, extracts. I have source evaluation, and a link to the record, and then all this other info. This is how I research. I've been doing professional research for about 10 years. I have my certificate from the Boston University. If you don't know about that program, Boston University has a 15-week online program. It's master's level work, 30 hours of homework a week, and you basically you can earn a credential. They're now giving a credential for that 15-week course. And this is one of the ways that we learned how to do proper research, to track everything. Because when you have a client, sometimes you would have to say, yes, I spent 3 hours, even though I didn't find anything. I spent 3 hours, and this is what the work product is. Great. So what else do we have here? Also, if you are a user of Evernote or Trello, I use Evernote as well. Evernote is a freemium product. I don't want to call it free or premium, but Evernote is, think of it as a virtual assistant, a digital notebook. So you can actually use this for free, and many genealogists use it. If you want, I run a group on Facebook called Evernote for Genealogists. Go ahead and join it. And we talk about tips and tricks on using Evernote. The other one I do want to point out is another free program called Trello. Let me enlarge this. There it is. Trello is a free project management application, and it looks a lot like Pinterest. There it is. So Ellen, do you use Trello at all? Yeah, somewhat, yeah. So I've started using it. You set up all these cards and boards. The nice thing on Trello, you can share it with another researcher. So if you have a cousin or a family member that is helping you research, Trello might be a good way to manage a to-do list, to do that. Great. So let's look at a case study. This is that World War I United States draft card. Now, the draft for the Great War in the U.S. started in June, and it was in 3 different phases during 1917 and 1918. So the first date was June 5th, 1917. Okay? And so this is that card. This is that original card. There's 2 sides to it, front and back. One other thing that people don't know about, you would want to know this if you're a U.S. researcher. Down here, this corner, it says, if person is of African descent, cut off this corner. But that was the way that they were able to tell race. That was the way that they did it on these cards. A lot of researchers don't even look at this and don't even, although the race does say Caucasian here, still, this was something that was relatively new that researchers tend to miss. So we pretty much have done that one, I think. And again, what I did is I extracted all that information here, and then a lot of this would become my new to-do list. Let's go to another case study. This one is interesting. This one is 1920 United States Census. It's the population sheet that the enumerator filled out. It's for my great-grandfather. Now, at this point, born in 1896, he should be roughly 23 years old, probably. And so what I did is I did find him in this document. Let me zoom in and show you, and it's really kind of odd. There we go. So, where are you? Do you see this here? Ralph Austin. Therese Austin. And who do you think this might be? That unnamed son, Alfred. That's my grandfather. Okay? So, the thing is, what is odd about this? Do I have new information, right? Let's say that all I know so far is that he married a woman named Therese. I don't have her last name. And they had a son, and I don't have the first name. I was told by Family Story that they were married May 30th, 1915. You know what I found out recently? They took out a marriage license in July 29th of 1915 and had a child, Alfred, in early March 1916. So I'm counting on my hand. Famous genealogist once told me the second and all the subsequent children come after 9 months. The first one can come at any time. And it was true. They actually didn't get married until August 4th in New York City. And now it makes sense. I never saw wedding photos of my great-grandparents. That was odd. I wear their wedding rings, you know, and for such a monumental event, why was there no documentation? I should have thought of this. But here, now the other thing is, who is the head of household? Can you read that name? Mulligan. Bridget Mulligan. Okay. And also, what do we know about Ralph Austin? What is he listed as? Roomer. A roomer is what a lodger would be. You would think, okay, so first off, you would think, oh, Bridget Mulligan is running a boarding house. And, you know, it could be. My rule is with lodgers and roomers, 2 things you should know, and it's not just for the U.S. Most times a roomer or a lodger is a family member. Some censuses, you are not allowed to list niece or cousin-in-law. You had to put them down as a lodger or a roomer. So don't think that these are strangers. Who would let a stranger board in their house? I know this is way before Airbnb, okay? But the thing is, now during the Depression is different. In 1940, you do see a lot of people taking in strangers for economic reasons. But this is 1920. Prosperous time. But the other thing is, So why would Ralph and Therese and Alfred be living with this Mulligan woman? And remember, I said that Theresa's maiden name, birth name, was McGinnis. And look at what's down here. Loretta McGinnis. What I come to find out to solve this mystery, and this is going to blow your mind, Bridget Mulligan is actually the mother of Therese and Loretta, and Mulligan was her second married name. Now, why? I'm ready to kill the enumerator. Why did the enumerator not say daughter or son-in-law or grandson? For the 1920 census, that was perfectly acceptable. But can you see how I would have gone on a wild goose chase if I hadn't documented any of this information? This would have been so easy for me to overlook, to say, oh, okay, maybe this isn't my person. Maybe this isn't my Ralph Austin, because it doesn't say John, it says Ralph J. What is his age? Does his age line up? He should be about 23. Yes, 23. Says he's married. It says that Bridget Mulligan is also living with someone called Owen Mulligan. But look at this. He's not even listed as her husband. He's listed as a rumor. So I guess we have a lazy enumerator here who just said, oh, yeah, you know. And sometimes you have to wonder, who was the informant? Now, one thing that if you do U.S. research on the 1940 census, they started to mark with an X who the informant was, which is very valuable. So you know who actually gave the information to the person that was coming along. Great. So let's move on here. So I want to capture that information. I want to know, okay, Bridget McGinnis, what was her maiden name before she was a McGinnis, and when did she marry this Owen Mulligan? It turns out it was 1912. And then who is Loretta McGinnis? How is she related? Why are they all living together? Okay, so you want to solve those mysteries. And again, this is a close-up of that extraction. Now, here are some tips and tricks. I will actually, we're okay on time. Are there any questions out there? If you speak loudly, I will answer them. But are there any questions out there? And I will repeat them. Stunned in a silence, huh? Yes.
Yeah. As I say, I put some to-do lists.
Yes.
MyHeritage.
Right.
MyHeritage or the Outlook, because I haven't seen you use Outlook.
Right, exactly. Well, you're putting me on the spot because I'm here speaking on behalf of MyHeritage. Of course, I like MyHeritage, but MyHeritage doesn't have a to-do list like some of the other programs like Roots Magic or Legacy Family Tree. So I use an independent, something outside of Family Tree Builder and the online tree to keep track of my to-do list. For me, what works is that Excel spreadsheet. I'm a spreadsheet guy. I open it up. I leave it open for the few hours that I'm researching. It's the way that I capture. But again, as I said before, you need to develop a system that works for you, because if it's not going to work, you're not going to stay with it. Yeah, exactly. Right, because I can tell you right now, I have information in my MyHeritage tree where I don't know where it came from. And I don't know how it got in there because I didn't leave what I call a breadcrumb trail to get back to exactly an audit trail, right? And so the goal is, what I want to get across is, when you do create a to-do list, it's got to be something that works for you, but also please note when and where you got the information. And you can always go back to hopefully that origination point. Another thing I want to tell you, at least MyHeritage is really good about this, but some of the other databases which shall remain unnamed, I can say Family Search though. Do you know that those records are not always, don't count on them always being there? Did you know that? They have limited licenses. What a limited license means is Family Search has signed an agreement with the state or the country to provide these records. And that license can end. And it does. We had an instance in Chicago 8 years ago. We used to be able to get our BMDs, our birth and marriage and death records, for free on Family Search. Images, everything. Wake up one morning, gone. Poof. Millions of records. The city decided, hey, we're going to get into the genealogy racket and sell them for $15 each on our own website, and so we'll just let the license expire. And they never told anyone. So if we had not captured those images, we basically now had to pay for those images or go to the family history library in Salt Lake and actually look them up on microfilm. So my first step, whenever I have a record on MyHeritage, right-click, save the image, save it to my computer. That way I know whatever happens, if my subscription lapses from MyHeritage, whatever, I always have the document. Other questions before I move on to the tips and tricks? Okay, well, let's move on here. So, capture everything. You know, in today's computers, I remember the first IBM PC in 1981. I remember when file names were 8 characters limitation. I remember when they were selling a 10 megabyte hard drive for $3,500 US. And we thought 10 megabytes is a lot of room. Now I can scan an image in TIFF and it can be 25 megabytes. So we have the ability, space-wise, to capture as much information as we can. We should take advantage of that. Also, create a to-do list. It's a must for research. You know, it's the only way that you're really going to get the most out of the products that you're using, hopefully MyHeritage. And please consider using a research log. Now, this seems like a lot of work to some people. Let me go to my research log. They're saying, you're kidding me. For every entry, look at my entries here. That's just the first entry. Here I have a second entry, a Social Security death index. And this one, it's red. You know what red means? Negative evidence. See, it's all color-coded for me. I have a lot of red things here where it doesn't prove conclusively. So on one of mine, I just did one for this person's grandfather. I had 45 different birth-related records just for his second great-grandfather born in 1862. So it is time-consuming, but this is really a work product. It builds a legacy that I can pass on to the next person. Also, have your research tools organized and ready to use. Who has a research toolbox here? I know Marie does, right? Because Marie listens to me, right? This is what I'm talking about. Let's see if I can get this over here. Here we go. My theory is, why should you spend 30 minutes looking for tools when you should be using that 30 minutes looking for ancestors? So I created my own little website, which is public. Let me zoom in here. And these are all the tools that I use on a daily basis. So for general research, I'm using Don't Tell Anyone, Ancestry, Family Search, Find My Past, Fold 3, Google Newspapers, Internet Archive, Macavo is gone, I should edit this, MyHeritage. Here, Roots Web Search thingy. That's actually something, it searches all of Roots Web's records in one fell swoop. So what I did is this. I created records, I created links that I use all the time. I can pull this up anywhere in the world, here's an example, and start to use this for research. I don't need to say, oh, where was that site I was on last week? Here's another example. If you look at my Google Chrome, now this I can enlarge, but look at this. These are all of my research links that I have organized here, about 150 of them. And my records, my links are always here. My New York links are here, and I can go and get what I need. So if you use a source online over and over again, stop yourself and say, hey, this needs to go into my genealogy research toolbox. Your toolbox, again, it can exist as a blog. It can exist as a Microsoft Word document. It can exist on sticky notes, whatever works for you. But again, we're talking about efficiency and productivity. And also, please, decrease the amount of time looking for files and folders. You know what frustrates me? 9 or 10 levels of folders. I worked for attorneys for almost 30 years. Their theory was less clicks. That's what they always told me. Thomas, I want less clicks. I just want one click to find what I need. Also, What is your naming convention for your files? Have you ever put thought into that? So let me show you what I've got here. Now, this is my mother's wedding announcement from 1961, I think. Yeah. So she was married July 1st, 1961. This was printed July 13th, 1961 in my hometown newspaper in upstate New York. And I wanted to give a name to this PDF. Now, what happens when you scan something? What does your scanner name it? Image 001. The worst name ever. How many Image 001s do you have on your computer? Okay. So what I've got here is, let's see what we've got. Let me see if I can pull up the document. So let me do this. Let me go to my files here. Apologize for the delay. And I'm going to go ahead and start a Word document, start a new one. I just want to show you briefly how I name my documents. I'm going to enlarge this quite a bit. Build the font up here so it's somewhat competent there. That's better, right? So, my mother's maiden name was Austin. I always put the surname in capital letters. Why? Austin is also a given name for some men, okay? My mother's name was Jacqueline. And then I do this. What does that mean? Born 1941. How many John Smiths do you have in your database or a common name? This is a way of telling, right, looking at the file, oh, it's that Jacqueline Austin, or it's that John Smith. Now, the next part is kind of tricky. What is the date of the article? The date of the article is July 13th, 1961. Also, what is the description? Marriage announcement. So I'm going to say marriage announcement. I should probably put a space in here. Marriage announcement. 1961-07-13. That's the way I do my dates. Because if this were in the beginning of the file name, they would sort in proper order. When you use the name of the month, like April or January, you know, it doesn't really work very well. That means that January with a J is going to come after April with an A, and that's not the way it works. Then I'm also going to put the name of the newspaper, Liberty Register. I can even go so far as to, why don't I put down, it was page 5, column 3. Heck, I've written the source citation right here in the file name, haven't I? But if you do it this way and you come up with a consistent method, I can go to all of my images in one file, in one directory, and I can say, oh, that's the one that I want because I named it properly. We're now living in an age where we don't have a limit on file names like it used to be 8 characters or 24 characters. So please take advantage of that. I can't show it. I can't blow this up, but these are all my images, and they're all named like this. Alfred Austin, born 1916, 1920 U.S. Census 01. Here's Alfred Austin, born 1916, 1925 New York Census, and I have 1925-0601. That was the date the census was taken, and 01 is the first image. So come up with a system. Does this make sense for naming files? You know, but whatever works for you, and stick with it. Let's go to our last slide. I'm at the Q&A. Imagine that. And I kept us on good time, even a little bit early. So, I will take questions from the floor now that we do have a few minutes. Are there any questions? Mm-hmm. Yes. 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 And what was that last part? Yes, yes. Yes. Yes, yes. Right, right. Well, it can be disproved later over time, so I might have stuff that's solid proof. I mean, in my great-grandfather's example, I only have 2 records that definitively lists his full birth date, his death certificate in 1976, and his World War I draft card in 1917. Which is the better record? The draft card. Why? It's closer to his birth date. It's also filled out in his hand. What's wrong with the death certificate? At least the ones that we have in the U.S., it's usually there's an informant. And that person is usually grieving. They're under stress. I have only found one death certificate that was filled out by the decedent. Don't laugh. I figured the woman had to be a genealogist. But it turns out she was in a nursing home and in hospice, and she had no living relatives, and she was like, I'm going to get this information right. So she is listed as the informant on her own death certificate. So I think that's what I want to do. But yeah, proving it is not very easy.
Most importantly for me,
yes.
that it is correct.
Yes.
The soap of his father.
Yes. Right. So what you want to do, right. You.
Small details.
Yeah. Why don't you repeat this to the microphone? Thank you.
Small details are not, for me, so important as the connection.
The connection is more important than small details, right. But sometimes you are only working with negative evidence. Sometimes when I'm working with records from the 1700s in the United States, they're not as detailed. And so I need to prove something through a lack of other evidence. And those are much more difficult, and that's why we get into details. I agree with you. I want to know the connection. But again, I personally need that backup information, especially when I'm doing client work. So, other questions? Yes? Right, let's wait for the microphone here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, my question is, we're doing an awful lot of work on our genealogy. We saw a suitcase full of papers that had lasted 100 years.
Yes.
Now we're all using websites,
yes,
and maybe subscription websites.
Yes.
Have you any tips to try to ensure that our information is going to be available for our great-grandchildren in 100 years' time?
That is a great question. It's what I'm afraid of is what I call the digital dark ages. If I were to hold up a photograph of my great-grandfather from 1917 and a flash drive with that same file in JPEG, in 100 years, which one would be more accessible?
Yeah.
The print. Okay? Hopefully our eyes will always work. So that is one of the problems that we're having. Also, baby boomers in the United States are leaving a large digital footprint. You know, I know what's going to happen when I pass away. My family will burn my genealogy in a bonfire on the front lawn. Guaranteed. They will try, but I already have in my estate planning, and I've done that. I've also already started to donate items to societies and to libraries. I do have not to sell my own stuff, but there's a book out there called After You're Gone, How to Future-Proof Your Genealogy. It's on Amazon Kindle. It's only $2.99. It's real cheap. But I talk about different ways. What I urge you to do is start planning now. Don't put it off. Don't say it's not going to happen. In my household, I have a book called What If Thomas Gets Hit by a Bus? And it has all my passwords, all my websites. It has all my recipes because my family would be lost without my cooking. But anything that's stored up here in Thomas's brain goes into the What If Thomas Gets Hit by a Bus book. Yeah. So, but again, I'll be right to your question. But again, take that time to do that. Also, what about this? What if, let's say you're using Ancestry. What if they were to go out of business and gave you 30 days notice? Do you know how to export all your data? Where would you start? Did you know that exporting data might not export any photos that you uploaded? You should always have an exit strategy for any site that you're using, even MyHeritage.